pardon the emergency sirens that are insanely loud from my house. But today I'm going to talk about episode 13. This is the last of my 3-part episode instead of a really long 1-part episode. So episode 13, CW Nancy Drew. I don't necessarily know that I have a lot to say about this episode because I feel like it was so good that it speaks for itself. So I actually just have a couple of comments on that one. Few observations, if you will. So while I was thoroughly engrossed in this episode, I couldn't help but think that I would absolutely love to play this Nancy Drew video game. The idea of exploring her perfect reality in the dreamscape, trying to find the clues, then taking those clues back to the real world and putting that all together, absolutely fantastic. I think that CW should talk to Her Interactive, maybe help Her Interactive get some better game developers on board, and then put something together here because I think it could be gold. Next, I can't help but feel upset over the fact that I can't feel upset over the fact that the ghost at Larkspur Lane is trying to keep them from getting Lucy's secrets, or rather her mom's secrets. It seems benevolent more than malevolent. He's just trying to keep her secret. It seems like a favor to a friend. So, yeah, okay, it stinks that Nancy's stuck in this altered reality, but at the same time, it's kind of her fault. She is sticking her nose in other people's business. So while I was rooting for her to get home the whole time, couldn't be angry. Like, honestly, that spirit didn't even seem all that evil. I guess because he killed his kids. Was hoping that we'd get through the series without dead kids, but an allusion to one I guess I can handle. I don't want to think about it too much. Moving on. So while this whole scenario is going on at Larkspur Lane, Ace is busy busting Carson out of jail and holding him hostage. So it caught me off guard when they pulled the fire alarm and were all outside and had cell service again. And Nick calls up Ace, and Ace is at the Claw. So how long did this whole hostage situation last? I've never been in a hostage situation, but I would assume it would take longer than an investigative journalism visit to a hospital. So that seemed like maybe time was altered there a little bit. Maybe they sped things up. Maybe things are taped out of order. I don't know. That just threw me off a little. Then it did take me a little while to realize that the friends and family in Nancy's perfect reality were trying to keep her there. It just kind of seemed like, hey, this is perfect reality. That's just what this is like. They care for you. They're going to ask you questions about yourself and how you're doing and what you think. And, say things that are going to make you happy. But I am realizing that I appreciate the subtlety of this show. The fact that it did take me a little while to put that together, I think gave me more of an insight as to what Nancy may have been experiencing while she was going through that whole thing, because it probably wasn't abundantly clear to her either as she dealt with this situation. So this show is doing that very nicely. There's a couple of times where I've been confused by things, but they were very clearly specified by the end of the episode, if not in an episode or two. So again, like I said last time, they're not talking down to their audience, and I really appreciate that, especially considering that this is a show designated for a younger audience. So I don't feel talked down to, but I have to imagine the teens, preteens, I don't know who's CW's demographic, they're not being talked down to either, but it's still set up in a way that you can easily follow and put it together like a real mystery. One of my pet peeves is when you watch like Sherlock Holmes, terrible about this, where you get to the end and he's like, now I'm going to tell you what I did and how I figured it out. And he's pulling out stuff that nobody in their right minds could possibly have put together as clues. So you as a reader had no way of playing along at home. I feel like with this Nancy Drew show, you definitely have what you need to play along at home. Therefore, in my book, makes it an excellent mystery series. If you feel like you can be successful at solving this mystery, you're more likely to engage. So kudos to them. Well done. Then I also thought it was interesting that Nancy's mother in the perfect reality seemed honestly the most like a real person, where she was very much herself. So in Nancy's brain, her mother was perfect. I also really liked her motto that she had. always seek out the truth even when it hurts. And then that played into her maybe not pushing Nancy as hard as the others to stay in this realm. Obviously, she asked, but then they had a very frank conversation about it. And I thought that was really true to what we've seen through Nancy's description of her mother, of what her character was actually like. This also gave us some really nice backstory, and I thought it shed light on a lot of Nancy's instincts on things, seeing her interact with her mother here. Then I'm not sure if this was Nancy's move or her mom's, but the idea that you would put actual constellations in the glow-in-the-dark stars on your kid's bedroom ceiling, I love it. Because if it was her mom, that means she did it probably just for herself. And if it was for Nancy, that meant when she was young enough to be putting up or like glow-in-the-dark stars, that she wanted the constellations there. So either way, I thought that was hilarious. And if I ever have kids, I'm doing the exact same thing. Then finally, at the end, I legitimately squealed with delight as we met Hannah. Hannah has always been one of my favorite Nancy Drew characters. I think she is wildly underused in the books. So to see her here where I thought that they were just going to be skipping over her was an absolute delight. Then as she comes in, first of all, I never in a million years would have figured out that horseshoe made up the flower, or the flower made up of horseshoes was similar to the horseshoe logo on the Historical Society crest. Although I guess that's why I was never a teen detective. Still not a detective. But then when she was talking to Nancy and kind of figuring out like, oh, look, there's all these lock boxes here. And Nancy made the comment, oh, I guess you're a keeper of sorts. I just, like, my heart swelled with joy because it was such a good, like, wink and a nod that she had been the housekeeper before in the books, and she's still here in a similar capacity as a keeper of secrets. So, oh my goodness, such a good way to end this. I hope they bring Hannah back so many more times. Maybe she could move in with Carson and them and still run the Historical Society. If Carson's volunteering at the Historical Society, hopefully we'll see her that way as well. But I was just joy at the end of this episode here. So, all right, I'm going to be racing through to get through the rest of the episodes because the season finale aired this week and I would really like to be completely caught up so that I can finally read all of the articles online talking about the thrilling ending, and there's interviews with cast, and I'm dying to go read all of those. So be sure to like and subscribe. I have lots of new ideas for Nancy Drew content. I hope you're all staying well, stay inside. Until next time, toodaloo, Nancy Drew.